Joining me tonight on the News Hour is Caroline Glick, International Affairs Advisor to Prime Minister of Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu. Thank you very much for joining me here on Times Now. Israeli military in a statement has said that it attacked 6 Iranian airports in western, eastern and central Iran. Israel had said that it has other goals in Iran and will continue its operations. Can you elaborate on what those strategic objectives are and how long Israel is prepared to sustain operations inside Iranian territory?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me on your program. So the government of Israel has set out very clearly, Prime Minister Netanyahu has explained that we have two goals, two strategic objectives in Operation Rising Lion in Iran. The first one is to wipe out Iran's nuclear capabilities so they're not able to develop nuclear weapons. They were on the cusp of developing those weapons, which is why we acted when we did. And the second goal is to wipe out their capacity to attack Israel with ballistic missiles by destroying their missiles, if possible, on the ground before they're shot into Israel. We've had over 550 missiles shot at Israel, which has been devastating. Although we've managed to intercept most of them, over 1,000 drones have been shot into Israel. We've managed to prevent almost all of them from entering into Israeli airspace. All the same, that's a very major threat, and particularly the missiles. So we've gone after the industrial capacity, we've gone after the missiles themselves on the ground, and most importantly, we've gone after the missile launchers. So what you're seeing in the airports that you're talking about is decimating Iran's ability to attack Israeli aircraft and to mount aerial assaults against Israel from those installations. So that's all in part, it's all in keeping with the two objectives of Operation Rising Lion. And the operation, of course, will go on until we've achieved both of our objectives.
Why did the IDF attack the Fordo nuclear site once again when the Americans had already done so? Could it have been because the Americans may not have been able to damage it to the extent that they may have initially wanted?
I think what I understand is that the attacks have been outside of Fordo. They've been at the approaches to Fordo to block the Iranians from going in and trying to, rebuild or transfer any materials from the ruined site to a different location. So it's more about blocking avenues of approach, from what I've been led to understand, and from what we've released so far today.
An Iranian military central command spokesperson called US President Donald Trump a gambler, warning that while he may have started the war, Iran would be the one to finish it. How do you see this threat? Because this is equally a threat to Israel.
Look, Iran has been in a continuous state of war against the United States, against Israel since 1979 with the Islamic Revolution. And they've been fighting a seven-front war against Israel that they launched on October 7th through their proxies, and they have joined directly on a number of occasions. Israel has wiped out most of Iran's proxies that have been warring against us. We've decimated Hamas, Hezbollah, the Syrian regime fell. We've been attacking the Houthis, and of course Iran now, without shorn of its proxy armies, is a viable target for Israel in a way that it wasn't before. So they've been waging this war against Israel actively. They launched it, they initiated it. Some of the people that Israel was able to attack and eliminate in Iran are the people who were the architects of the war that began with the invasion of Israel on October 7th, 2023. So to pretend that Israel has initiated a war against Iran is just, another one of the baseless lies that the regime has been telling since its inception, since they seized power over Iran in 1979. So we're not surprised, and we don't believe that they're going to end it unless they decide to capitulate. Otherwise, we'll end it.
Today, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi lands in Moscow to meet Russian President Putin after US attack on Iran nuclear facilities. Russia has condemned America's attack on Iran's facilities. How do you see this meeting?
I think that everybody, Iran has been supplying Russia, obviously, during the war in Ukraine. with drones and other things. So they obviously have an operational cooperation, and I don't really know what they're going to be talking about there. President Putin of Russia has made clear that he doesn't intend to get involved in this war. As he pointed out the other day, a very large percentage of Israelis are Russian speaking, and that he's not really interested in getting into a war that would target the people of Israel.
I also ask you this question because Dmitry Medvedev, who is serving as deputy chairman of the Security Council of Russia, has said that a number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. Do you see this Russia-Iran cooperation transitioning into something more sinister?
Well, I find it striking, and it's obviously a cause for concern. But Israel continues to be in close contact with the Russians, and so far, and of course the Americans are as well. And so I think it's very clear that we have very clear goals in this war. We want to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, which is a position that the Russians have also claimed over the years that they share. So I don't see the Russians being involved in proliferating nuclear weapons to Iran, since that's against precisely what the Russians stand for. And so, it's a source. It's obviously not a nice statement to hear, but I couldn't say that we're overly concerned, no. I think Russia also understands just how dangerous the world will be if the most prodigious state sponsor of terrorism, the largest state sponsor of terrorism, is able to acquire the most dangerous weapons known to mankind.
Iran's parliament has approved a motion to close the Strait of Hormuz. Given that this could trigger a global oil crisis, would Israel support or join a multinational naval effort to keep the Strait of Hormuz open if Iran enforces a closure?
Well, look, I think that this is something that the Americans have addressed. It's considered to be a threat against the United States and the economic interests of freedom of navigation in the high seas, which is something that the United States views as its duty to uphold, which is why they took action against the Houthis for closing the Bab el-Mandab and threatening maritime traffic in that choke point. So I think that this is something that the Americans are leading on, and obviously Israel will provide any assistance that we're asked to provide in that effort. But that's something that I think you're going to be looking more to the Americans for leadership. Obviously, we're very aligned and fully coordinated with the United States on all of these issues.
President Trump recently stated, if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why won't there be a regime change? And signed off with MEGA, Make Iran Great Again. Given this remark and the increasing US-Israel military coordination, does Israel now view regime change in Iran as the only long-term solution? I ask you this because the United States appears to be speaking in two voices. First, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, says that US is not considering regime change, but Trump almost contradicts him just a few hours later.
We strive for peace, and Israel had peaceful relations with the people of Iran. The Jewish people have had peaceful relations with the people of Iran for millennia, just like the Indians have. Our problem has never been with the people of Iran. It's always been with this regime that seized control over Iran in a very hostile takeover of the country in 1979, and the people of Iran have been trying to overthrow this regime since the mid-'80s. So, and hundreds of thousands, millions of them have taken to the streets once every couple of years to try to bring down the regime. The regime is now at its weakest point that it's ever been at since 1979, since the Islamic Revolution. And if the people of Iran want to seize this opportunity to free themselves from this tyranny, obviously the people of Israel would be very happy. I assume that the Indian people would be as well. And everybody should be, all free peoples would want the Iranian people to be free of this barbaric tyranny that has been sponsoring terrorism all over the world and is seeking nuclear weapons. So I think that would be a wonderful thing. But Israel isn't going to be putting boots on the ground, and neither is the United States. This is up to the Iranian people. This is their chance if they want it. And I think that was very clearly what President Trump was saying. that we may have created the conditions with our operation that will enable them to seize their freedom. But that's not our job. That's not for us to decide. That's for the Iranian people to decide.
Since you mentioned India, Prime Minister Modi has had a word with the Iranian president and spoken of the need to de-escalate. Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu also get along very well, and India's ties with Israel have grown very close during their tenures. How do you assess the Indian position on the Iran-Israel conflict?
We value very much our close partnership with India. President, as you said, President Modi or Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu are in fact very close and very aligned in their visions. And I think that we believe that we have an extraordinary future for our relations with India. There are amazing synergies between the Indian people and the people of Israel that we're already deepening and expanding and exploring in a way that is wonderful for both of our peoples, and we don't think there's any limit to the things that we can do with our Indian friends, and we look forward to expanding our relations with India more and more in the coming years.